Hello and welcome again to the Wisdom Factory. Hearing words of wisdom, let it be in the Wisdom Factory. The Wisdom Factory is a forum for open-minded people like you and like us who have knowledge, experience and wisdom to share with the world. I'm Heidi Hornlein.
And I'm Mark Davenport.
Our topics cover most areas of human experience. We invite people who not only have interesting things to say about their topics and about their lives, but who have also an evolved perspective on what they are doing. They are all inspired in contributing to the creation of a better world by helping people to gain a better understanding and perspective on what is happening in the world and in their own lives, and what they can do and contribute to help to resolve the many problems we are all facing today.
And this is our 12th episode, and it belongs in the category still of business. And the title is Integral Operating Systems for Organizations. And before we introduce our guest, Cecile Green. Hello, Cecile.
Hello, Mark and Heidi.
And hello, Dennis.
Hi from Germany.
All right. Some words about us, your hosts. We have created this show because we want to bring our knowledge and experience out into the world. The things we've learned, which have opened up our vision of the world and of what it is all about. We both were attracted to integral theory many years ago, and it really changed our lives. We're counselors and coaches, especially for creating thriving relationships, and we run an association, retreat guest house called Paradiso Integrale here in Italy, in Umbria, and when you're in the neighborhood, we love to see you. Yes.
Yeah, and also come to one of our retreats.
Oh, yes,
for sure.
for sure.
The next one is in April, I guess.
Yeah.
Okay, a part of it. First, we want to introduce, and I begin, ladies first, with Cecile. Cecile is a visionary. She's an entrepreneur, an experiential philosopher, and she is a farmer with a passion for assisting mission-driven organizations achieve their visions. As an integral scholar, practitioner, and lifelong learner, as we all are, I guess, she holds a BS in community-supported agricultural systems that we don't have. Also, we have an olive farm around here. And she has over 2 decades of experience in entrepreneurial environments. She has participated in nearly a dozen organizational launches and built from the ground up for successful businesses.
We should become her clients.
Oh, good. Would you like to add something?
Thank you. I also found integral theory really changed my life and provided the foundation for the research I've done to this integral operating system I call Collab, and the book that I wrote, Collaboration That Works. So I'm really excited about the show with you and Dennis, and looking forward to it.
Great.
Thank you.
Wonderful. And then about Dennis Wittrock. Dennis has an MA in philosophy, in English, and in arts. He was the co-director and visionary of the first Integral European Conference, where we attended and participated in Budapest last year, as well as the co-founder of Integral Europe and a former board member and CEO of Integrales Forum and the Integrale Academy in Germany.
Bravo, the pronunciation in German, isn't it great?
Well, those are the best-known organizations which have spread the integral worldview in the German-speaking countries. And Dennis works as a freelance journalist and blogger. He's currently a certified Holacracy agent, practitioner, and trainer, as well as a general integral activist. Furthermore, he practices body weight training, Zen, yoga, and chanting. And we invite all of you to watch. No, I wait. First, let's listen to Dennis.
To watch what? To hear us sing.
No, that comes later.
That comes later. Okay.
See if Dennis wants to say something.
Yes. Dennis.
Well, yeah, thank you for the introduction, and certainly also Integral also changed my life in dramatic ways. So the Integral map has been, as developed by Ken Wilber and others, has been extremely helpful for me to put together my fragmented pieces of insights that I had into a coherent whole, and inspired me to bring it out into the world and in any way I can. And this is kind of the theme of my life, and my involvement with Holacracy is also kind of expression of that, because I feel this is an integral operating system, if there's any, and it's a very good blueprint for that. So.
Good, thank you. I just want to say hello to Ulrike Hayden. She was the guest in our first show in January. Hello, Ulrike.
Welcome.
Okay, so our topic is integral operating systems for organizations. Not everybody knows about integral and all this stuff and operating systems.
Wow.
Could you tell us a little bit what that means? Whoever wants to respond.
Ladies first.
Well, it's a big question, and I would be happy to take a crack at it. I'd love to hear what you have to say, Dennis. But for me, an operating system for an organization really has to do with the structures, the systems and structures that enable us to work together, to communicate especially. So whether that's how we make decisions together or how we track information, it's all a set of essentially practices which are often invisible in organizations. And frankly, every organization has to have one. So the question is your operating system really delivering the value that it could for the health of your organization? And in terms of an integral operating system, it's a system that really encompasses both the individual and the collective, the interiors of those individuals and the collective, and the exterior. So it's complex. And beyond that one aqual map, the quadrant map, it also would address the lines of development that people experience. It would facilitate state awareness and build consciousness around type. So those are kind of all of the things that one would want to see in an integral operating system.
Okay, so let me ask a stupid question. Normally in organizations there is a boss, and they're underneath the team leaders, and then they have the employees. Mm-hmm. And this is an operational system, an operating system, with your words, but not really an integral one. Is it true?
That's correct. In my definition, yeah.
Okay.
So I would also think about the kind of the level of complexity that operating system stems from. So operating system on a computer basically is the, like Windows or Linux or what have you, which is the basis for all the other apps or programs to operate on. So it is in the background. It's kind of invisible. It is the water you're swimming in, and usually it is kind of impregnated, or it is derived from the culture, the cultural mainstream, or the level of cultural development your organization is swimming in. So that means in our world is an largely orange to green paradigm, at least in the Western world. Sometimes blue is mixed in there, and I'm talking now in terms of levels of development according to spiral dynamics, if you're familiar with that model. One could also frame it in words like, is there a traditional worldview, or is it a modernist worldview, or is it a postmodernist worldview, which is kind of informing the operating system. And from that background, you have, so if you install a new operating system on your computer, it, for example, if there was a time when there was only text-based operating system, so you would have to type in your commands to your computer, and there's only so much you can do with that kind of operating system. But when the desktop-based mouse and arrow and all that stuff, visual interface became the new norm, it allowed you to run totally different apps and get totally different results from your operating system. And when we talk about integral operating systems, we are talking about organizations that coming from a new higher level of emergent of consciousness, namely the integral, which is supposed to be the coming after the postmodern level of complexity, and kind of opening up new possibilities to work together in a new way that has never been experienced before. And as somebody who has done some research on that is an author who I really recommend is Frederic Laloux. He wrote a book, a very nice book called Reinventing Organizations, and basically describing some 12 organizations or which he has researched, who all seem to stem from this new emergent wave of consciousness, who do things differently, and you can really see similarities in their practice. These organizations do have practices for wholeness. They have different ways of decision making involving people, getting them engaged. They are tending towards self-organization, self-organized teams, and they have ways of figured out ways of making these decision-making modes to make them work. Because, of course, if you want to involve people in the work, in the decision-making, then what's the best way to do that? Do we all sit in a big circle and everybody has a say? That could take forever, and we've all been there, maybe, you know, if we've been around in postmodern circles. So that's apparently not a very effective way of decision making. So we have to come up with new ways. So I'll stop here for further comments or questions.
Yeah, thank you. First of all, I want to welcome Michael, and I'm not really familiar with the Russian alphabet. He probably comes from Russia, and he has written something which I cannot translate now. But welcome, welcome, and we are glad that you are here.
Maybe you can translate. Yeah.
Okay, we will go to later.
Heidi, are you switching cameras? Just
Yes,
to know. Okay, good.
So I wanted to lead over. You both are the representatives of two systems which are working. And I want to begin with you, Dennis, because you are presenting and working with Holacracy. And Holacracy is one of these operating systems. And I had the chance to do a 2-day workshop and had a little taste of how it is working. And it was quite fascinating how decisions were made and how, oh no, I don't want to talk more. I think you can explain us a little bit how Holacracy works.
Okay. Well, in 10 minutes, is that fair? I mean, that's just ridiculous. Of course, you cannot really dumb it down, but you can say, okay, I can say a few things. So, of course, so I talked a bit about the decision-making process. So, what Holacracy does, well, it's a social technology for purposeful organizations. That's how they kind of put the essence of what Holacracy is. So a social technology means it gives you a blueprint for almost any organization you want to build, which gives you practices for meetings, certain meeting procedures, different types of meetings, a constitution, a set of rules of the game, which defines how authority is distributed and what the criteria for decision making are, how to apply them. And so it is a kind of a out of the box method, if you want, for existing organizations, startups, and anything in between. And so there are meeting practices. Then there is a certain structure. The work of the organization is structured around the purpose of the organization. This is the most what's the most important. So everything is derived from there. The whole work is structured around the purpose, and a good purpose is so I tell you what's not a good purpose for an organization. Let me start here, which is just let's make money, and that is just in that kind of view of organization is not a good purpose for an organization. It's a good metric of an organization. It's a key metric that you want to keep an eye on. Is this organization producing more value in the world than it's consuming? And if this is so, then you're on track. But you should have something like providing health care for the elderly people or something. That is the purpose for an organization, for example. Provide high-quality health care, for example. And then you group your teams and your circles around that to accomplish that purpose. And the way it's done, it's that the purpose is being broken down into, first of all, there's a main circle you start with, general company circle, by whichever name, which contains, which has the scope of this purpose, to fulfill this purpose. And within the circle, you have the functions of that it takes to fulfill that purpose. Gets broken down into roles, and these roles you can further refine and define the accountabilities, the recurring kinds of work they're supposed to be performing. And
can you give some examples, excuse me, Dennis, what these roles are?
Yeah, for example, if you take healthcare, so there's for such an organization providing healthcare, there must be nurses, either in-house nurses, if it's a stationary thing, or ambulant nurses that drive out to people and give health care, And then there's probably a back office organizing the payment and handling the bills, taking phone calls, so maybe a service role that takes incoming calls, maybe some marketing role that gets the word out about the service. So these are different functions of any, these are very standard functions of organizations, and those get defined in for the organization. But the interesting thing is they get defined together within circles of the purpose is broken down into appropriate pieces, and within these pieces you have the members of that circle collectively define the accountabilities and the roles and the policies of that circle. So they all have a word in it if they want, and they don't need to, but there's a process which makes sure ensures that everybody can bring in their feedback and their tensions. This is a big word in Holacracy. So tensions, let me explain, can be something negative that you want to get rid of, and let's do it better next time, or can be a positive kind of pull. Oh, there's a great opportunity out there. Let's go after it. This also creates a tension. So it's a neutral word. And Holacracy is supposed to be a system which gives everybody in the organization the means to process any tension reliably and quickly into a meaningful change within the organization. It's a bold claim, but I think they do. So if this is an organizational tension, that must be added, because there are a lot of tensions we hold as human beings, and some of them are because we are in a certain role and cannot make progress within that role for the organization because something is blocking our way. But sometimes it's just I'm grumpy and I don't know, I have a bad day and have tensions about my coworker, and that's not an organizational tension per se. And Holacracy has a way of mirroring that back to me. So you find out in the process, okay, this is my stuff. I need to take care of this. But this part of it is organizationally, can be resolved organizationally within these kinds of meetings.
Okay, so, thank you. I would like to go into it. What I have understood about Holacracy is that a big organization can be constructed in several, let's say, almost hierarchical circles, and even the lowest in the hierarchy, the lowest worker can have a voice by that, because he can utter his tensions in his circle, and there is a person who brings this tension, when it is accepted, to the next circle, and then there it is discussed, and it can, let's say the last worker with a good idea can have the influence to change the whole.
Yeah. So in Holacracy, the people are viewed as on the partner level. Also, so there's no personal hierarchy, but there's a hierarchy of work. So a hierarchy of scope. So there's a top circle which focus on the problems of the whole organization. Then there's, from there on, you get lower circles which focus on sub-problems or sub-purposes of this organization. And yes, those circles are connected with what we call a lead link and a representative link. The representative link is a person that is being elected from within the circle and takes part in the meetings of the higher circle. And the important thing is that, of course, in these higher circle meetings, the same rules apply, and the same governance, which is a big word in Holacracy too, applies. So there is a guaranteed way of processing tensions coming from the bottom of the, if you want to call it like that, the bottom of from the shop floor up to the highest level of the organizational hierarchy. The information can flow up, but it can also flow down through the lead link. That's the classical. You can view it as a classical manager, but of course it's a bit different setting than. So there's these nuances to it, but yeah, there is an exchange between these levels, and everybody can effectively influence the organization if they if they can really show, and this is also a very important criteria, that everybody can make a proposal on their level in their circle, and if there's no objection to it, and an objection is defined as throwing us backward in terms of our purpose. So the measure is always, are we progressing according to our purpose, or is this setting us back in terms of a purpose? So the purpose is always looked at and is very important, and in the end affects decision making. So it's not so much can I push through my personal agenda, but no, there's a process of your the objections to your proposal being tested. There's test questions. So this really, and this everybody in the circle can raise their objections, and even later, when your proposal has been accepted, it can still be changed, so that nothing is written in stone. Actually, so it's a very dynamic, very fluent, and very flexible construct, which is why what makes Holacracy so agile and attractive in our kind of what is that, VUCA environment, as I heard the other day, and V standing for volatile, uncertain, and something else. And so it's just a way of saying the world is uncertain, and in this environment you need a very agile and dynamic approach, or it's recommended. So that's what Holacracy offers.
Thank you, Dennis. Cecile, you have worked with Holacracy too for a long time. Would you like to add first something before your question? Okay.
Oh, thank you, Dennis. That was to Holacracy mentioned. I began to learn Holacracy in 2010 and found a lot of value in it. There's some tremendous benefits in clarifying and distributing decision making, being able to better self-organize, has a capacity to really energize people and bring more innovation along. So just tremendous power, in addition to being agile, as Dennis was just saying. In my time with Holacracy, I found that there was a problem with limiting the definition of organization to anything that didn't have to do with the people. And that around that limitation, I discovered that there were tensions that impacted my work that couldn't be processed because the organization limited its construct of what it meant to organize. And so as I dug deeper, I realized that a better definition for organization, one that was more adequate, included the people as well. So organization was simply what happens anytime we do work together, and anytime we come together to make something happen. So we can say more about that later, but yeah, it's
okay. We come to your. In a minute, Mark wanted to ask a question.
Yes, I did. I'm thinking about these, avant-garde approaches, and looking back on my own work history, which fortunately is in my past these days. But anyway, I'm sure virtually everywhere I worked in my life, we either had traditional or modern structures. And I'm just wondering, I'm trying to put myself in those situations again, and could they even see that maybe something like Holacracy or some other advanced system would be helpful? Who responds to this? You know, who says, yeah, let's do this?
Well, the answer is, I think, quite straightforward, simple. People at that level of complexity from which Can you meet myself? Okay. Can feel attracted naturally towards such a system, and so it takes one of these people in positions of power within an organization to get a foot on the ground, to get it to move forward with it. Because if somebody at a low level of hierarchy within the organization wants it desperately, good luck selling it to your boss, the system which says basically we don't need bosses. And so you have to have the kind of foresight and depth of seeing the value in relinquishing power in a traditional or way of holding it, in a feudal way, or should I say futile way, even. So yeah, it's more an illusion of control that you kind of fall prey to. But anyway, people just tend to hold on to power and status and money, of course, and are afraid of trusting each other, basically. So it really takes a leader that is so far along that they themselves are like yes, the cherry blossom leaf that falls to the ground, and you just, by installing such a system to make way for the organization to unfold its own path, and not trying to dominate the will of the organization by staying in your place. That's my take on this. I don't know if you want to add something to that, Cecile, or how do you see that?
Yeah, it's such a great question. Thank you, Mark. And I definitely agree with you, Dennis. It takes people who are ready to move past what they have experienced to date in their leadership. And so using the levels of development, I find that unless you're kind of exit modern or exit orange, like moving into postmodern or getting close to that, the constructs are they're not even understandable. Like, I could talk and it makes no sense. So it's like there's no ears to even hear. But there has to be a willingness to understand that multiple perspectives is the next wave. It's what's going to take the leader out of pain. So I would add that you need leaders who are in pain, who are facing challenges they can't manage on their own, and the recognition that there's something possible with our collective intelligence that's not happening right now, and it could. So that's what it takes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's both the positive and the negative tension we just laid out. So the negative tension being, okay, stuff's not working anymore the way we did it, and the positive tension being, okay, there's somebody who's doing something out there that is working. That's interesting. Maybe that's something, the potential that we can grow into. Yeah, totally.
Okay, I have another question for that. So, if you need people in the developmental range of orange and at least orange and green, you said, to find the ear to understand it. So, is it only the leaders, or do everybody in the organization need this higher level of development?
It's a great question. What I'm finding in practice is that it takes at least people who have a position of authority to get it started, and then they can bring others along, because with a set of clear operating system practices, anyone can participate whether or not they get it, right? And in fact, especially I find with Collab, what it does is it's actually driving the development of any individual, no matter where they're starting, as long as they participate. Because of how the practices work to uncover our growing edges, the organization's growing edges, and to create support for moving those forward. So it's a developmental driver, and as long as you've got the system in place, anyone at any level seems to be able to actually participate.
Yeah,
this is interesting that being part of such an organization is developing your own personal development. It's fostering your own personal development. This, I don't think, with traditional organizations, I don't think we can say that. Can we?
No.
Well, traditional. It depends. If you're at red stage, egocentric, it might, pull you up, but only to that level and not beyond that. And I'd like to add, it's really a social technology, and a technology like these things nowadays, everybody can use it. That doesn't mean am able to build it or construct it myself, but I can certainly make use of that. And so it really takes at least individuals who can just simply follow rules, and sometimes it's even not a good idea to have very smart and exit green, exit postmodern people trying this, because they're so smart about everything. They want to go and change the rules right away before they have even practiced the damn thing. So I have some experience with that, and I won't name names. Yeah. So yeah, I think Brian Robertson, the pioneer of this method, once said it. Yeah, that also it's really sometimes better that if people just follow the rules and just practice it and not ask too many questions about it, because there's a lot of iterations of trial and error have gone into this system. So many pathways have been tried, and so it contains a lot of wisdom already. So if you want to, it's like, okay, I don't like the constitution of my country, let me rewrite this passage. Come on, it's a distilled knowledge of generations in this document, and you just want to rewrite it. Doesn't mean it can't be rewritten. In fact, it is. the Holacracy constitution, the rules of the game, is in its fourth, I believe, iteration for the Constitution 4.0. So they're updating the operating system in regularly, and people can contribute to that. But yeah, there's you should just trust it and try it out, and then.
Okay. So we know a little more about Holacracy because it's a little more around, and there are already books written in the book you named before from Frederic Laloux. There is Brian Robertson's organization itself described. I would like to ask Cecile, what is the special thing about her concept, and how does it work?
Thanks, Heidi. Well, let me share my screen a little, and I have a few slides I wanted to present to you all. And let's see if this works.
Yes.
Okay, great. Yes, it's working?
Yes.
Oh, good. Okay, lovely. Well, I wanted to give an introduction to Collab a little bit by telling you about my journey here, which did include, as I mentioned, intensive learning period with Holacracy 1 and being certified as a Holacracy instructor. And in the process of kind of going through the education that I did with integral theory, my own experience as a social entrepreneur for 25 years, and my exposure with Holacracy, I realized that I had a pretty big assumption, which was that you could put good people together with good intentions and you would get good organization. And again, I just remind you that the definition of organization that I'm referring to is what happens anytime we try to do something together. Humans come together to do work. And what I realized, however, was that it takes more than good intentions and good people to predictably get good organization. And that blank, that missing piece of the equation is what drew me in to investigate Holacracy, to dig further into integral theory around organizations and individual development. And partly it was driven because this really matters, actually. And so here's just a little bit of data. This is a tiny bit of data in terms of what's out there on the cost of operating at lower levels of development. Because as we grow as a species, there are more and more people who are both capable and who desire to be able to operate more comprehensively, more fully, bring more of themselves to the equation. And when they can't, their organization loses out. And it's not even to mention all of the kind of normal conflict and toxicity that happens in a top-down system. So it really has an impact. 300 billion annually is no small number, and that was from 2001.
Excuse me, Cecile. I don't know if you think you are changing the slides. You actually are not.
Are not.
So,
okay.
And there's also a text underneath the flower. You might redo that.
Let me try rebooting that and see if it works. Okay, let's see if I've got other options on here for showing the screen share.
You just have to go ahead with the slides, and maybe make the window a little bit bigger.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is that any different, or is it looks the same? Yeah.
It's the same.
It looks the same. Okay. Well, let's see. Let me.
Yeah, this is the next one. Only it's very, very little. If you can take the text away, yeah.
Okay. And can you still see it now? Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. Great. So. Hopefully that, let me know if it doesn't forward.
Okay.
So there's the numbers, and yeah, it just really struck me that this really has a quantitative and qualitative impact to us as we work together. And can you see the next slide now, or are we still on the data?
Yeah, on 3. Why this matters.
Why this matters.
Okay, excellent. So what my quest kind of took me into is this question of, how do we change these underlying, often very implicit paradigms of how we work together? And communication really emerged as one of those key places in an organization where we have some leverage, because we can't get a single act of work done without communicating. And so as I dug deeper into communication, this realization that every moment that we communicate, there is both a content and process. There is a what, and that's the content, and there's a how that we go about getting that content. And in most organizations, the focus is on the content. What are the numbers, right? Very little attention is paid to the process of how we get there. So the operating system is not just about process, but what it does is it leverages process. If you have a conscious operating system, you are leveraging process to get better content. So both of these things co-arise in every moment, and I became really curious about what is a comprehensive understanding of the conversations, the communication that we have in order to get our work done. So can you guys see this this bubble map with 7 different bubbles, or are we still back on?
We are on the why this matters.
Mm-hmm.
Still why this matters. Okay. Apparently the screen share is not working properly.
You can go ahead on your computer, maybe with a...
Yes, give me just a second here. See if I can escape this. Okay. So yeah, let me try one more time. Technology.
We are learning.
Need a new operating system, maybe.
I know, right? Okay. So very good. So hopefully you can maybe see now this this image of the 7 different conversations. So my contention was, unless you deal comprehensively with all of the communication needs of an organization, you won't actually be able to upgrade your operating system. You'll have part of your drive operated, but not the whole drive. So just briefly, purpose is, and Dennis referenced this is why we're here. What are we doing? What is the mission of this organization? And for me, mission, vision, and values come together to create an effective purpose. Next is business model, and business model really is something very complicated, but it does something very simple. It's the conversation we have about what's the value we're giving to the world, and how are we receiving value back in return, and does that equation work? Next bubble is strategy, and strategy is different than business model. The two are often mixed or confused with each other, but strategy is how are we going to get from where we are towards that intended model? What are the steps? What are the initiatives? What are the priorities we're going to pursue to get there? Next is governance, and governance is all of the shared agreements we have about who has authority to do what in the organization, what are the policies, procedures, protocols, all that kind of stuff. And next is operations, and operations are different from governance in that they literally are the daily details. They're the work, the concrete projects and actions we take every day. And Holacracy really did a tremendous service to the world by making the distinction between governance and operations, right? Very profound distinction, makes a huge difference, because then you can set shared patterns of governance that work, and you can also be collaboratively accountable to each other when you have those two conversations separate from each other. And then conversation number 6 is the interpersonal, and that's our culture. That's the relationships between each of us as individuals. And the individual is also critical. This is me and you and the growth that we're engaged in, because we are all growing, whether we're conscious of it or not. And we all have an impact with what capacity we bring to an organization. So those 7 conversations are happening all the time already. That's one of the cool things that kind of emerges from this, is that this is happening, and the question is, are you having effective conversations or not? Because these different conversations all have to have some output in order for us to function together. Otherwise, we can't. We can't actually do our job if we don't have some answers to these conversations. So what Collab does is build simple integrative practices for all of these conversations. And producing effective work conversations. So simple, effective process to get good, useful content. And when I say integrative, Here's some examples. As you'll see, Holacracy is one of those integrated. The distinctions between operations and governance is very, very key. But there are a lot, like the last several decades, there's been a tremendous amount of work done in organizational development, individual growth, and Collab seeks to integrate those all in a minimally sufficient manner. Or I should say not all, but some of the key methodologies. So, for example, Theory U is one that's not listed here. I couldn't list them all, but Theory U has a profound insight into what it takes to actually be innovative and create something new in the world, to live at that emergent edge. And so that's woven into the practices. And just to give you an example of one of the other principles that's embedded in here is this concept from ecology that waste equals food. And Dennis, you mentioned it in the word tensions, right? So in a social human ecosystem, the waste is that we all have this capacity to notice tensions. It's biologically wired into us. And frankly, in most organizations, those tensions are not wanted. They are not welcomed, and so they are treated as waste. And within Collab, and Holacracy also does the same thing, it says, actually, let's make use of that. Let's make use of those tensions. It's actually food, because we can turn this into productive solutions. So it's a really profound, very powerful, very simple way of embedding continuous improvement in an organization and doing that through everyone's eyes, which makes it so much more fun and actually productive. So in addition to that, there's lots of principles embedded, but I wanted to give you an example of what the practices look like. What are the specific components of the work that the meeting flows, the practices we use, and this is an example, not that we'll get into it in detail, but just to give you a sense of what are we talking about in terms of a practice. So that's one. And also with Collab, we're data-driven, so we take intake assessments, interim assessments, and exit assessments. And this is a slide of some of the implications after only 17 weeks of practice. So the implication here is that there's tremendous growth potential here, and it actually can happen pretty quickly in some really key areas for organizations. So it's exciting. And in conclusion for me, it really does make a difference to have a good process, or as we're talking about this thing, this good operating system, key piece in order to actually get good organization together. And if any of you are curious about what this means in practice, I do have a free toolkit which you can find, I think, on the show page. There's a link to it there. I just posted it. So that is my introduction for you guys on Collab. And let's see if I can stop my screen share now. There we go.
Thank you, Cecile. This was very informative and very good that you have it on the slide, so we can go back and see it. Thank you very much. And we are quite at the end, and I would still invite you, if you still have to say something, for instance, what is coming up, a book or whatever you want to to give to the listeners. Oh, by the way, I have to ask you a question. I don't know of which of you both I have to ask a question by Sven Welchen. He says, what is it, in your experience, that facilitates this growing of people who are part of this method?
Well, I will give it a shot. With Holacracy, I think what's really powerful is the process of guiding your attention to all the right places, so that you make what is object, what is subject, object. So in your awareness, you are being guided to the places and you're being asked simple but effective questions. So give me so why is this an objection? Why is this not working? Is this because you think it shouldn't be done because you don't like it, or is there a reason that can be tied back to the organizational purpose? And stuff like that. So you're being forced by the system. There are communicational pathways that force you to become aware and become awake to your drives and desires, motivations, make them object, and so you can have them instead of being had by them. So that is just a very general way I see, and there are many others, but maybe Cecile wants to add to that.
Thanks, Dennis. Yeah, just because I happen to have produced a map that explains this, let me just share with you one more image. And absolutely, so in this image you'll see this organizational power matrix, which puts two polarities together: autonomous power and collective, and then the implicit power and the explicit power. And as Dennis was just talking about, what's so effective with development is that you move from what's implicitly not working, and it surfaces as a tension, whether it's around how autonomous power is being used or collective power is being used, and that gets placed on the table for investigation and development into something that explicitly can work, right? And that process is key, and then that whatever that new pattern is that's explicit, we now have collective accountability to practice it, right? So people grow by practicing. That's one of the most key pieces about, I think, what makes this work, is that we make something, a new pattern, explicit, and then we have a chance to practice being accountable to each other. And eventually that new pattern can actually become implicit again, so it forms the foundation for our new level or new capacity that's now just behind our eyeballs. It's there, it's available for us, and now we're on to new things that we're working on. So the habit is really key, and the practices, having the regular meeting practices that hold you to this, is also a key piece of what makes this so powerful developmentally.
Wonderful.
Nice
Thank
map.
you. Yeah.
Yes.
So, Cecile, would you like a final word, takeaway, whatever you want to really know that the viewer knows after the session with you?
Was that for me, Heidi?
Yes, first for you, and then
yes, I start. Okay, great.
Okay.
Yeah, well, I think you know, the key thing for me is that these practices are not complicated. They're not difficult to learn. It's actually not rocket science, and that if you are curious about putting these into actions, they're entirely learnable and produce a whole different level of organization, as Frederic Laloux talks about in his book, which is tremendously exciting. It's actually a much more powerful way of doing good in the world. So do it. And if you want more support, I encourage you to check out my free toolkit. I know Holacracy has some various resources, but and we do offer facilitator trainings. We're just beginning our first one with those coming up soon. And we have a book also available on the website for purchase. So, and thank you, Heidi and Mark and Dennis. It was a delight being here. Really enjoyed the conversation.
Thank you.
Thank you, Cecile.
So, and Dennis, I know you have a workshop coming up in Germany, and any other information you want to give out just now?
Yeah, let me just cover the workshop first. So that's 16th and 17th of January in Bremen.
January? No, this is past.
No, February, excuse me.
Yay. Good.
February. And so that would give you the some intro workshop credits if you take part in this. So then you can move on to higher levels in the Holacracy training program schedule if you want. And yeah, in terms of takeaway, what I learned today is there are a lot of people doing a lot of cool things, and the change is already happening before our eyes. And this gives me, well, I feel inspired, and I think there's a lot of hope for us to leave a better workplace for our children. So make this a world, this world kind of more sane in the sense of creating spaces where people can work on purposefully bringing the whole self in to the work, or the parts that matter to them, and be totally seen and accepted as they are, and contribute to something meaningful and make a hell of a lot of money doing it, hopefully. Yeah, I mean that's something I think we can all look forward to. And if you want to learn more, please engage with these practices and make them visible in the mainstream. Make it become part of this silent revolution of the workplace, or not so silent. I mean, I can see it around every corner, so stuff is popping up like crazy. So yeah, join in and join the show, and join Heidi's show next time.
And people can find you in integralkontext.de.
Yes, this is a German website. You can find my contact details there if you're interested. I also teach English workshops whenever I'm invited, so that's also possible. And yeah, so I hope to see you, or those of you who listened in today. And thank you again, Heidi, for having me, having us, and facilitating this very interesting conversations. I will certainly check out Cecile's tools and what she has to offer. And yeah, I hope you have a even bigger audience next time, it's growing and thriving. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Yeah, next Wednesday we will have Barbara Carlson. She is a researcher on John Gebser, not only, but and she will talk about birth consciousness and the divine feminine. So it will be probably very interesting. Yeah. So thank you, everybody. Also our watchers, the present watchers and the watchers who come later on YouTube. Very nice to have you here, and we hope we could take a little bit away with that. And as we talked a lot about with the left brain, I would invite us here and you out there just to join into a right brain activity, something like I did at the beginning. Just join me to sing a little adieu.
Okay, I'll join you to sing, but I'm singing with my left.
Thank you for having us, Heidi.
Thank you, and goodbye.